Okay, so being 7 o'clock, open up the Conservation Commission meeting. Terry, Ed, Jerry, myself, present. First thing at 7 o'clock is Nick Cohen for the Stormwater Management Bylaws update. Discussion?
Yep.
Hey.
All right. Great. Well, thanks for having us back. I'm Nick from VHB. I think we met on Zoom last time.
Yeah.
And Sarah's with me again. She was virtually there in Zoom last month too. So we're here to go over the stormwater draft regulations, and what Sarah and I should say mostly Sarah.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt. If it's easier and it might be a little clearer, if you
Sure.
don't mask, the rest of us can mask if everyone's okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Just because I know it gets a little fuzzy when I'm doing the...
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we took what the feedback you guys gave us last month and we incorporated that into draft regulations from other best practices from other communities, from other draft bylaws that are out there. And then there's a few places where we have questions for you guys to make sure we're capturing what makes sense for Halifax. Before I get into specifics, just background and no one will get in trouble. How many of you guys read the draft regulations and comments before tonight?
I did not.
Did not? Nope. Okay. All right. No failing grades. But we'll, it just helps me so I know how much detail to go through when I go through the questions. And before I get into that, just
Quick is good.
we'll be as quick as we can. Yes.
We're basically trusting you guys.
That makes sense. We just want to make sure there's nothing in here that you guys aren't comfortable with,
Okay.
or that there's nothing that's different from what Halifax typically does. Just as a reminder, these regulations will go with the bylaw that passed town meeting in November of 2019. So that bylaw is on the books. The regulations are just the implementation details, things like fees, procedures, nitty-gritty details that you all will deal with for implementation. If any changes need to be made to the bylaw, that will go back to town meeting. In theory, any changes to this doesn't necessarily need to go back to town meeting, but obviously it's a little chicken or egg question because something in the bylaw might affect this and vice versa. But the goal is to get these implemented by June 30th of this year, which is the requirement for the MS4 permit for stormwater.
Okay.
Last piece of background, just to remind everyone, these are, and the MS4 permit requirements are different from the Wetlands Protection Act requirements. There's places where they overlap, which we went into last time, but this would be a new requirement that the Conservation Commission would deal with as it relates to stormwater and stormwater permitting and regulations different from the Wetlands Protection. And we can go into more details if you have questions on that, but I always think that's a helpful reminder because sometimes it gets confusing when they overlap. Okay, so getting into the specifics. The first question that you all is on page 8.
Maybe just start, because no one's read it, maybe you just go like, I don't know, just say
Section by
one
section.
section by
Sure,
section,
that's
just
a great
kind of
idea.
say, all right, here's what it is.
Yeah.
So
Well, didn't we do that before? I mean, you developed the
Over
draft
Zoom.
based on,
Over Zoom, we kind of told you what this was going to be all about, but we
Yeah.
hadn't actually written the regulations.
Yes, we can just go through the sections
Yeah.
of the, not of the permit, but of the regulations on the cover. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, just because you are going to be responsible for enforcing these ultimately, so we can give you a head start in getting familiar with them.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Sarah. So the first section is purpose, which just kind of outlines why you're doing this stormwater MS4 permit, that background. Section 2 is definitions, like any other set of regulations. Authority gets into your authority, how you would implement and oversee this regulations. And that's, I think, where most of our questions are, as well as in the next section, which is applicability, which projects apply, how you're going to administrate them, which is the next section, section 5. Section 6 is the stormwater management permit and procedure. So that's when a project comes up, permit that they have to get, how the procedure works for getting that permit, for you all reviewing it. Again, I think we have a few questions in there. The next 3 sections, I should say, are specific management plans that the applicant would have to file for. So it gets into what they need to do, what they need to include in those plans. So the first one is stormwater management. The second one is erosion and sediment control. So that's the construction site runoff that we talked about last time. Section 9 is the third plan. That's operations and maintenance. So that's after the project is done. And last time, you might remember, we talked about how the applicant would have to send in like a self-certification that they're doing that O&M plan. Section 10 is inspection and site supervision. Some of that is your authority to inspect and make sure that they're doing what they say they're going to be doing. The last few sections are really about just ongoing compliance and making sure that records are kept. So final report, certificate of completion, that kind of stamping that what the applicant said they would do is actually done. You might notice lots of this follows your Wetlands Protection Act regulations, and that's intentional. So I think, for example, the certificate of completion language, we copied as much as we could from what we already have. Does that all make sense as a example? All right. So, like I said, I think it's really sections 4, 5, and 6, I think is where most of the questions are. So first question.
Hi. How you doing?
Conservation, right?
Members of the public, and the gentleman had a concerning questions for conservation, and I told him I'm the wrong person to discuss it with. That we
Okay.
have to go through Terry.
Okay, right now we're in the middle of the stormwater management thing, and this may be a while. I don't know how long it's gonna, they're more than welcome to wait.
Would-
Probably 45 minutes or so.
Are you-
No, that's it.
You can give me a call tomorrow if you want. I can try and answer a question. If it has to do with twin lakes and associations, I'm not gonna know anything about that.
No, she told me, and I can't zoom in on here for some reason, won't let me in.
What's the number they should reach you at, Terry?
781-293-6557.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I love you guys.
Okay,
No,
sorry
no problem, no.
to Interrupt there.
Thank you.
Thank you for helping us.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, have a good night.
Continue on.
All right. So the first question is in applicability. There are, under item C, there are a handful of exceptions to the regulations. The bylaw doesn't specifically lay these out, but they seem like good exceptions to include. So wanted to just pause and make sure that items 1, 2, and 3, we should go ahead and include in the regulations. One of these covers the question you guys had last time about landscaping and kind of ongoing maintenance.
It makes sense to me in there.
Yeah, that sounds,
Okay. And Sarah, if I miss any questions as I'm going through it, please
Sounds
interrupt me. All right, next is item D. So biosolids are included in the bylaw. I'm on page 8, item D under section 4. Biosolids are included in the bylaw because that was a particular concern raised when we went through the process about 2 years ago. It's not typically in these kinds of regulations and bylaws because it's not MS4 specific, but it's a good practice because it's certainly related to stormwater if biosolids aren't managed well. The way it's written in the bylaw is that somebody would have to come into you all, show that they've gotten the necessary approvals through other processes through the state, that they go through biosolids, and then you all would say, all right, great, you've got your approvals, you're all set. That's as one would read it in the bylaw as it's currently written. If you wanted to add more specificity of an additional approval that you all can give, or some process for reviewing it, you could provide that details here. If not, the way it would work is, like I said, someone who wants to use biosolids on their land would come in theory, and say, here's my signed permit from other places. You guys would look at it and say, all set, here's your approval. So again, this is a little bit of a unique case for Halifax. It's a good one, but want to make sure that there's not any specificity or details that you want to add to this item D.
I can't think of anything as hell. No.
Okay, so that would be fine with you guys. Someone would come in to check their permits.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just, yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
It's almost just like an additional review to make sure someone's not issuing biosolids without those approvals. All right, next, on the next page, on page 9, and now we've moved on to the administration section. So on letter C, there's, throughout this document, different definitions of days. And Charlie particularly and others have indicated it's important to just clarify what you mean by days. So I went and looked in the wetlands protection regulations you all have. Sometimes the term working days is used, sometimes just the term days is used. This is the case for these regulations. Want to make sure I'm clarifying how you all want to define days for this case, but any other case where we're talking about the amount of time for review or amount of time for public hearing or things like that.
What do we usually do, Terry, for
I would like working days.
working?
Yeah, that was,
Okay,
Yeah, but you know, if you say they got 14 working days, that's 3 weeks.
yeah, should it be 10 working days then?
10 is fine. Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
10 be
We also
2.
have to take into consideration when they actually meet as well.
Yep.
Right.
In this case, it's a hearing. after notice. So
So
Right.
you would, this is
So they
basically.
come in front of us anyways. So they have 10 days, or whatever.
10 days.
They have 10 days once we
Well,
initially met.
This is actually, sorry, later in the regulations, we talk about, notice for someone to come before you. This is actually talking about if you all want to amend the regulations, you need to provide the public with 14 days of notice before changing the regulations. So, does that, maybe that was clear all along, sorry.
Yeah, we
Okay,
definitely would
sorry.
have 14 days.
Okay. Or, sorry, 14 days or 10 working days or 14 working days?
To notify the public,
Yeah,
as far as notice in the paper,
yeah.
14 probably.
I think we should probably go with the 14 working days, only because the paper has certain deadlines, and.
Right, if you miss it,
We
we'd
have.
rather-
Before town meeting, yeah.
Yeah, depending
Sure.
on when they apply, I may
Mhm.
miss the deadline for the paper, which would push it up a week, or push it back a week, however you want to see it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think so.
It makes sense to me.
You
Okay.
know, because to notify the public, I mean,
Right.
it would be pushed at least, I would say at least 10 days, depending on when they actually apply. So I would need at least 10 working days to make sure that when they apply, we can cover the deadlines with the paper.
Yeah, so she won't be under the gun
Yeah,
a couple of days.
I mean, in order for a publication, you have to have the notice to the paper, usually on Monday for Friday's publication. And if they
That's 4 days,
give
yeah.
it to me on Tuesday or Wednesday, it's getting pushed the following, the next week.
Monday.
And when you
And
say
again,
they,
depending on
you
when
mean
we-
the Conservation Commission? Because that's, or is that what you mean, or do you mean the applicant?
The applicant.
So I think that's what I was trying to clarify here. This is not having anything to do with the applicant. It's saying if you all want to change your regulations, you need
Oh,
to put
okay.
something in the newspaper 14 days before you have this meeting
Yes.
to approve, to change the regulations. So it actually, this one, there's public notice about the applicant and
Oh, okay.
applying, but this has nothing to do with the applicant.
So if we
It's
wanted
just-
to change something, we have to put it in the paper. And
Yeah.
again, I think depending on when they decide to change something,
Mhm.
we have to wait for the next meeting, and then
Right.
the deadlines in the publication has to
Yeah, you have to
follow.
like backtrack from the
Right.
meeting.
So
Yeah.
so I still think
14 days.
14 days.
It's 14.
okay, so 14
At
working
least-
days.
Yeah,
Yeah, do we add the working or
Yeah.
just?
Working days.
I would
Okay.
go with working days just to cover ourselves. We
Yeah.
certainly can do it more than,
Yeah.
quicker than that. We just want to be able to have that leeway if we need it.
Well,
So-
actually, 14 working days is giving you less leeway, because it's saying you guys have to be so on top of it that 3 weeks before your meeting, you give the public notice.
So let's imagine like today you change, let's say these regulations are on the books.
Changing, yeah.
Today you changed, made a change. The way this is written, it says not less than 14 days before the day of such a hearing. So that means
not,
that
yeah,
you have to give at least 14 days from today
Before we can make the change.
before you can have the hearing in which you make the change.
So you'd be easier on yourselves if you gave yourself less, if you said, if it was less time.
Because you could always give more. but
You
we
could
don't.
always give more time, exactly, but this way, like, you could still make a change if you gave notice 10 days
10
before or
days.
whatever it is, yeah. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
It's up to them. If I.
I think,
yeah,
I think that 14 days is fine, because we're not gonna put, we're gonna have a meeting before we put it out anyways.
yeah, we usually discuss it
And
on
then
the
we'll
meeting.
have, yeah, then, I
And
mean,
14
that'd
days
be
is
fine.
pretty standard, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so we
Not
don't,
less than 14 days, yeah.
Yeah.
okay, so we don't want to have working, just 14
Yeah.
calendar days.
14 days.
Yeah.
Okay, easy enough. All right. Next one is in section 6, which is the stormwater management permit and procedure. This is getting into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of what the applicant would need to provide. The first question here is about biosolids, which I think we answered with a couple questions ago. And we now know they need to get a stormwater management permit. You guys would sign off on that stormwater management permit if they have all their other permits for biosolids. Does that sound
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, no.
Oh, that's good.
Can I
Okay.
ask a stupid question?
Yeah, of course, there's no stupid questions, especially in
I'm
stormwater.
not
because-
really familiar with all of this, but what is a biosolid?
Very good question, not a stupid
at all.
question.
I don't even know what it is.
So, does anybody?
is it fertilizers or some sort of human waste fertilizer, earth material?
Yep, so it's typically a byproduct of wastewater treatment. There's a solid that comes from the biological waste, hence biosoliid, that's often used for fertilizer. And I'm not an expert on this, but in certain states, there's different regulations about what you can and can't put it on. So typically, you can't put it on food as an agricultural product, but you could put it on animal feed or golf courses or things like that. Can't remember how the regulations work in Massachusetts, but I know there are restrictions. And so there was a concern raised that in Halifax, people might be using biosolids without any sort of oversight, even though there are state regulations about it. So the thinking was that this, the bylaw that was passed and the associated regulations could be another stopgap to check that people are going through the procedures that they need to go through to use biosolids. And those procedures exist outside of this room and outside of Halifax. Those are state and federal regulations on biosolids.
What do you got?
Biosolids are a thing that we've noticed that there's a lot of lack of education about when it comes to the general populace. Like, a lot of folks don't realize that you shouldn't be using fertilizer, say, for example, if they live on the lakes, or if you have a catch basin that abuts your property, technically, under state law, you shouldn't be fertilizing within a 20-foot distance. And a lot of it, it's really a lack of education.
We've been trying to tell people down the farms that for years.
Yep.
So actually, that's a really good point, because that, you know, if you have someone come before you to say, look, I have all the state permits, but I'm applying biosolids, is this okay? You can use that as an opportunity to educate them
Yep.
and say like, yep, you've got all your permits, but just so you know, this really pollutes stormwater in the lakes. And
Sure.
Which I think was exactly the thinking of
Yeah.
getting it into the
Yep.
bylaw and the regulation. So.
Good.
All right, next, we are still on A. The last sentence there of item A under section 6 is a stormwater management permit must be obtained concurrently with applying for a building, grading, or other local development permit. So the idea here is someone applies for something else, concurrently they have to come before you. Again, a place where if you want more specific sequencing or procedures, we can add that in here. If it just makes sense to use the word concurrently and it's understood that when they apply for something else in this building, they also have to.
But they usually do anyways.
They do
So
that. Okay,
it goes around before
okay,
they're let free.
got it. Okay, moving down to item B. This, I think, language came pretty much from the wetlands protection regulations, one electronic copy and one hard copy. Is that also how you want it? Do you want more hard copies, no hard copies? And again, this is kind of
No,
content
two.
preference.
2 hard
One.
copies.
Just to make sure, because someone may want to come in, take a copy out of the building
Yeah.
to do an inspection or something like that, and that way we still have one copy in the file.
Okay,
I would prefer it anyway.
sure,
2 hard copies, 1 electronic copy.
Yes.
All right.
great. And then below that, you'll see there's a list of items that they need to provide. Some of these are similar to the Wetlands Protection Act, some of them are similar to, or specific to MS4 and stormwater. One of them is an application form, which, as this is a new regulation, that would need to be completed. So I think at this point, that's just something to kind of alert you to. I don't know if there's a Halifax process when there's new application forms that need to be done. If it's something that we just need to follow up with Charlie about, we didn't want to assume that that's something that just gets done, so.
Well, it depends what they're doing. So typically they come in for a permit building or whatever, and
Right, we
they
just
tell
have
us what
to
they're doing,
create- we have to
and we tell them
create
what
a
forms
form.
they need to fill.
Do
Okay.
you have an application form for wetland permitting?
Yes.
So we have notice of intent, RDA, ANRADS and stuff
Yeah.
like that, but specifically for.
So that's, I
Or
think,
no.
you absolutely, yes, so that, the form for this stormwater doesn't exist right now.
Oh, okay, all right.
Nick accidentally said completed, I was
Oh,
gonna,
sorry.
he meant created.
Create.
So when it's created, we'll have it up available for people when they come in.
Yep.
So someone needs to create that form.
Is that something the state's working on, or different towns, or
We
is
can-
it something town
Because the only thing
specific?
that we would probably do is just put our logo and Town of Halifax on
Yeah.
the application.
You
form.
guys are doing such a good job, just keep on going.
Yeah, we can check other towns and kind of steal if that makes the most sense. I think they are going to be pretty standard, depending on if you all have specific things. The one that I know of is, in your case, there's going to need to be a checkbox for biosolids. Other towns probably aren't going to have that, or at least the ones that we work with. So Sarah and I can look and see what examples are out there and then,
Okay.
and then look at how onerous a task that is to create.
Thank you.
All right, next.
Next, I wouldn't have no idea what to put on it,
Yeah.
make.
Sure. Okay, next is on that same list, item 7. So still under item B, under 7. So it says that the list of abutters need to be filed with the town clerk. Given how things tend to work here, is that sufficient? Is it better for it to come to you and then you give it to the town clerk?
Usually comes to
No,
us,
basically,
no?
anything requiring an abutters list, the applicant has to go to the assessor's office to obtain the abutters list. That list a copy will go to the town clerk, and the other copies, usually 4 total, one will go to the clerk, and the other 3 will go to the applicant to put into the file. That's kind of just how I know.
So the applicant, sorry, I might have missed this. The applicant does have to give a copy to the town clerk
Yes.
of the list of abutters.
Yeah.
Okay, so in that case, we do want to leave number 7 as is.
And put the onus on the applicant.
Yeah, as far, for conservation, I believe they do.
Perfect.
I
So
think one
then,
always gets filed with the town clerk for
Okay.
whatever reason.
okay,
At least with zoning and planning board, we do.
got it. Okay.
The only thing you have to do a mailing too, like we do now, collect the green cards, make sure that the people got the
Yeah,
notice.
yeah, we would probably continue to require that because it'd be similar to a notice of intent.
Yeah, so
We
do we right now require notification of abutters?
We can check. I know I remember seeing it in your
What?
wetlands regulations about certified mail. We will double check that.
Yes, sorry, we do. We actually have a question about that later on.
Okay, great. Okay, so that takes us through item B. So next, still in section 6, is the fee structure. And this is on pages 9 and 10. There, we borrowed some language from the Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and then from other towns, and you'll see on page 10, there's a fee table. So this is definitely not set in stone, based on what we thought made sense based on your current fees, but certainly can change, and certainly can change the categories. This is just to give you kind of a starting point of how this might work. So any thoughts on this? Definitely welcome, and we can change as much or as little of what we have in here.
So where do the fees go?
You mean for the application?
Yeah.
Would it be considered a town filing fee?
I think it would be similar to how your wetlands protection regulations are. So I think
Yeah,
that's how it is under that, right?
Yes, town filing fees goes to the town. And with DEP, any wetland fees, some of it comes to us, some of it goes to DEP, to the state. So I would
With
just
this,
need to know whether
there's
it's...
nothing that goes to DEP.
Okay, so this would be strictly a town filing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is a part of, last time we talked about the revolving fund that you all have. I think this would be kind of similar, addressing that idea that you guys had last time. And part of it is to reflect the extent of the work that it would take for review. So, reviewing a single-family home is probably less onerous than a land disturbance greater than 3 acres. So that's why the fees are adjusted accordingly. But if that doesn't make sense, or if it makes sense to have a bigger range, that's certainly adjustable for us to discuss right now.
So this is just strictly for using biosolids, these filing fees, or is it for any type of MS4 stormwater
Basically,
management
any
project?
construction project that's over 1 acre, because
Gotcha.
that's what triggers this bylaw. So, and please we would love some discussion on these fees, because we chose them, based on other towns, but a little arbitrarily. So they should be reflective of what the resources the town would spend to review.
Terry, what's the fees now, basically? What's the basic cost?
Anywhere between 1 and 5, 1 and 750, depends on.
For single-family homes and stuff like that?
Single-family home, I think, is 225, I think, somewhere around there. I'd have to look, I don't know.
No, I'm just curious, I just don't want
I
to...
think it's
Oh.
really fairly
In the
line with
guidelines?
what we have, yeah.
Okay,
It sounds reasonable.
okay, that's great. And you can always give 14 days public notice and change the fees
Right,
whenever you
right.
want.
Okay.
So we want to keep these categories and keep.
Sure.
Yeah, keep that.
Okay. And yeah, as Sarah said, this is, once you're in the process, so if someone is just, building an addition on their house and it doesn't trigger that 1 acre threshold, this
Yeah.
isn't gonna.
Yes, disturbance of over an acre, yeah.
Moving on, in that same section and same page, at the bottom is item G. And this goes through, this is where that certified mail and some of the delivery piece gets involved. But this is specific to other boards. So we talked last time about how you guys would get notified of an application through the Board of Selectmen or through the Planning Board and vice versa, how you would communicate with them. So I think it might help to just take a moment, read item G and see if that jives with how things would get done, if anything would slip through the cracks. I think I'll let you guys just read it and see if you think that makes sense.
So basically, it's saying if they're filing with the Stormwater Authority being us, they have to notify the other boards as well.
Yeah.
That's
Is
Yeah,
that
makes
what
sense.
we have it?
Okay.
that way, if the other boards have any questions, comments, concerns.
Right, they get
they're
a
notified.
couple of weeks to get back to us. Sure.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
It gives me
And
14
are all
days.
these the boards listed, are those the boards you want listed? So it's Board of Selectmen, Planning Board,
Yeah,
Board of
that's-
Appeals, Board of Health, Building.
Yeah, the other
Yeah.
main boards, yeah.
The other idea that came to mind was because I was talking to Steve today from the Highway Department is, I think it would be worth adding the Highway Department just because Steve has a lot of involvement in other MS4 work.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that he
Yeah, it
would be
wouldn't hurt.
involved, but just for him to be aware.
Sure. Even the water department.
Yeah, we can.
Water, you said?
Sure.
Police or not worth it?
No, I don't think.
Okay.
And as part of that, one topic I know we discussed last time is if another board gets an application that hasn't gone to you because it slipped through the cracks or the person didn't know, are we comfortable that that would somehow get to you, or does it need to be captured in here, or maybe with another board that, hey, you guys gotta let the Conservation Commission know about this application for MS4? Or is that something that's just kind of outside this room and we don't worry about as far as your regulations?
I think it happens now, depending on the size of the project and
Yeah,
where it's
any
located.
any type of, basically with the planning board site plan review, they distribute the plans to all the other departments in the town. So we would be notified in that way, and we may see something that would trigger, oh, they need an MS4 permit.
And are those board, like, are they aware of this new bylaw? Like, is that something?
I know the Board of Health is, obviously the Board of Selectmen, I'm not sure about.
They will be as soon as this is finalized.
Okay, okay. Yeah, because we want to make sure they're flagging anything that's over an acre
Sure.
for you. Even if it's not in a wetland area, because this applies to the whole town. So
Yeah.
you gotta educate them on that.
And that's part of follow-up potentially, next year, once this is implemented. We've talked to Charlie a little bit about implementation support going forward, that it's not like you have these regulations and VHB disappears and it's all on you guys will continue to be involved and can help with questions and ongoing implementation support. And many towns will be dealing with these same complicated things. So it's, I don't want you to think like, all right, regulations are done, see you later. It's all on you guys. We'll continue to have conversations. Hopefully not as detailed as going through the nitty-gritty, but just.
Something comes up,
support.
yeah.
Yeah.
You'll be our Google.
That's the idea, yes. And then on here, there was also this question about hard copies. So I think when we talked about earlier, it sounds like hard copies are useful to those other boards. Okay. All right. So flipping over to the next page, page 11, under item H. This is where we deal with the actually abutters question. So I think we mentioned this, but this is where the abutters, how much time the abutters need to get prior to the hearing. So we have 7 days listed as the standard. Is that still as you'd like it? I think that's borrowed from the wetlands regulations, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would have to give them at least 7 days, yeah.
Okay.
We usually give them more, but,
Yeah, and this looks like it reflects what we were speaking about a few minutes ago. Is that
Yeah.
right? It's consistent. Okay. All right, moving along to item K. This one's a little complicated. So this is if a project changes. So let's say someone filed an application with you, it's all set, they're ready to go, and they decide instead of disturbing 1 acre, they're disturbing 3 acres, or instead of building a 2-family home, they're going to build a new Walmart, whatever it might be. How do you want to handle those kinds of changes? The way it's written in this, I think this we borrowed from a template, is that they just have to notify you. You can determine if it's significant and then tell them they have to come back or tell them they can go ahead. One thing that jumped out to us in this language is that might not be enough if someone just gives you the notification and tomorrow they have the bulldozer ready to go. So you might want to put in here some timing that gives you additional time to review whatever changes they're going to do.
I think they should come back in and have to modify it.
Yeah.
Any
Period.
changes.
Right.
Submit the new
And
plan.
if they give us one thing and they change their mind, then come on back and,
Okay.
yeah.
That's definitely-
Yeah, and the fees obviously would change if the project
We
changed.
submit it.
right, and see exactly what they're
If
doing.
it's, that big a change.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely one way to do it. And I think that's better. Like I said, this came from a template and we
It
felt
does,
like it was,
it does say, the permittee has to notify the stormwater authority in writing of any change of land disturbing activity before any change or alteration occurs. It just doesn't specify the timing,
yeah,
but it does say that you have to be notified.
right.
Should we add timing? or-
I think the idea is that they can't move forward
Yeah.
unless they got.
Come from the board.
Right.
How
We
about
amend the order.
Fees, if they had set up a fee for a single family, and now they're doing a commercial,
Multi and
Good
commercial
question.
and,
Should there be a change fee?
should there be a change?
would they have to do a whole different
Well,
permit?
Yeah, I would think, yeah, if they're going from residential to commercial, absolutely.
But
So if they
that's planning
did
board.
a single-family dwelling and they paid 200, and then they went to commercial, and it then is 700, do we just make them pay the difference?
I think it's,
Yeah.
I think maybe, but one other point I just want to make is it's unlikely that something's going to change from
To that.
like residential to commercial.
Right. Yeah, 'cause
It's
you
more
have to
likely
go through-
they'll say, we were going to put the stormwater pond here, and now we want to put it here, and we're sizing it differently. Is that okay, or is that discharging too much stormwater to blah, 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 blah? That's more likely what's going to happen.
Yes, I was thinking worst case scenario, but
Yeah.
more likely scenario is what Sarah described.
So in that case, probably there wouldn't be like that fee table we have, there wouldn't be a difference, but do we want to make them, you're going to have to re-review it.
Right.
So do.
Or like if you
that.
had a single-family residence, but it's really a multifamily residence and you didn't know about it, and how long's it been that way? So that, do they back pay? If they've been doing this for 10 years, at a multifamily residence, and they're only paying taxes and the stormwater fees for a single family, then how do you recoup that?
Yeah, there is enforcement provision, so I think that would be, and fines are included in your enforcement capabilities under the bylaw and as a result under the regulations. So I think you would have the right to bring them back and say, hey, we noticed this, you have to pay us this fine, or you get a slap on the wrist, and it's listed in the bylaw exactly what that covers. Some of those other items in terms of taxes and other approvals are certainly.
We're certainly outside of this.
Yeah, yeah.
I get that.
But I think the
Same idea, though.
Yes, yes, definitely. I think the point though of, do you want them to have to pay an additional kind of review fee for more of a minor change of just
Probably
designs to come
not.
back before you, or let them just
Yeah.
come
If
back?
it's a minor thing,
If
Yeah.
anything, no, they still have to come before us for that review.
Right, we amend order
Yeah,
conditions
I wouldn't say
quite a
that
bit,
you
so.
have to pay a
And
fee.
I guess the other thing that it just occurred to me is, if you have to send it back to your consultant who's reviewing it, they're still gonna have to pay for the additional
Sure.
consultant fees,
Right,
so.
any other fees that we
Yeah.
incur obviously will be passed along.
So I guess I'm taking notes and I'm still a little unclear on if we're changing anything in the language of K.
I think we're just making it more explicit that they can't move forward until
Okay.
they've gotten approval. So we'll just
Right.
add a
Okay,
little bit stronger language.
okay.
skipping a few pages, and stop me if anything's unclear or there's any questions you have. But the next question we had was on page 15, which is letter E. And these items are stormwater management design standards. These came from best practices from other communities. Some engineers, a few engineers reviewed this as kind of best practices. There may be some design requirements specific to Halifax you want to capture in here. I think this is a place where it's probably best if you all review this separately and see if there's anything you want to add. If you want to just defer to kind of best judgment, we can leave it as is. But there may be design details or stormwater management details in item E that you say, hey, in Halifax, we typically like to see this size catch basin or granite curbing or things like that we want to capture in here. So I think for the interest of time, I will skip over that.
Yeah.
Unless there's anything you know that.
I think it's just gonna take time to develop that.
Yep, okay, so we'll leave those as they are unless you're otherwise including. All right, the next question I have is on page 22. And this is now in section 9, which is the operations and maintenance plan. So this is the ongoing maintenance plan that shows that the applicant is doing what they said they do. This is now the post-construction side of things. Once the project's done, every year they have to say, yep, here's all the things we're doing that we said we would do years ago when we first met with you. And this item 6 has that self-certification that we talked about last time. And the question is, do you want an associated fee and form as part of that, that every year they got to send you a fee and a form that says, here's what we're doing. I think this is a little more open-ended as it's written, which is, again, one way to do it. It could be more prescriptive if you prefer to do that.
I don't think we should have a fee, but if they lie about what they're doing and it's caught, then there should be a fine somewhere in here said,
And
you know,
yes, that's a
this
really
is a
good
self-imposed, whatever, you guys be honest with us and you're all set. If you don't,
That is basically a violation.
right,
Yeah,
then it's
so-
$1,000 and you gotta come in front of the board and whatever.
Yeah,
They won't make you do it every year.
I think as it's written, it's like, you guys have the, forevermore, you have the authority to inspect the site to see if what they're saying is true. And then I think it's like $300 a day for every day that the.
With each
Yeah.
day being a separate.
Violation happens. Yeah, or less, you know, but that's kind of the maximum.
Doesn't DEP get $25,000 a day?
I don't know.
I think they do inside the wetlands.
Yeah,
We're inside the
Interesting.
BVW, but if you do something inside there, they can get you pretty good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that the language is, each violation will be no more than $300 per day with each day being.
I think that sounds right.
Because we use that upstairs
Yeah.
with buildings, so.
Okay.
And there is, from what I remember in the stormwater bylaw, there's a bit of discretion on your part in terms of the range of enforcement authority that you have, whether it's a fine or a correction action or anywhere in between. So that'll be,
And actually, then if it goes to court, like it did, remember, I won't mention any names, but years ago, a gentleman was fined $58,000 and went to court, and the judge says, well, what did it cost the town for this? It was like $8,500 in legal fees, and the judge finally got $8,500. So, it's, you know, it was a few years, and
What'd the guy do?
he,
Remember?
Made his property beautiful.
yeah, he did.
He was on the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did that.
it seems like that's where all these issues tend to most commonly come up in
Yeah.
Halifax. All right, and then the last page,
Okay, wait, sorry, I'm just going back to
Sure.
that last thing to make
Yeah.
sure I have my notes right. So we don't need, when every year people report what they've done for O&M, operation and maintenance, we don't need a fee, is that right? Okay.
It's the form.
And you do want a form for them to fill out, or can they just document what they've done in any way?
I think we should have a form, so everyone fills out, we don't get so many
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah,
Just something basic they can fill out and send in.
okay, sounds good.
But it should be on there that, you know, if you're falsifying something,
Yes.
you'll be subject to come up with something.
Yeah, like maybe, I mean, that is in the enforcement exception, but maybe we make that even more clear right here.
Right on the form.
Yeah, yeah, on the
Every time they fill it
Yeah.
out, they know, look at it,
Yes,
you know.
that's a really.
Not if I
good-
get caught, I get fined. It's like, it's right in black and white.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds good.
like you know what you're signing,
Right.
it's right there, yeah, okay.
Then they can't say, I never knew that.
Right. Okay.
So next on the last page, there's this, item 12 is final reports. And this is when work is done, final report that says that they've kind of installed what they said that they would. So the O&M plan that Sarah was just talking about is ongoing after the work is done. But this is the final report that says at the time of the work is
At
done.
the construction closure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a filing fee can accompany this report. It's in there now just as a placeholder. We can include that or not, and we can take out that whole sentence if you don't want a filing fee, or there can be that kind of rubber
What do you
stamp
think?
fee.
I mean, everyone pays enough fees as it is now.
Yeah, I don't want to keep
You know.
killing these people with
Yeah.
fees. You know, they're like, really? Sorry, I don't make the rules.
Okay, so we can,
I don't think it's necessary.
No.
Again, if there's something that they're documenting that's false, then we
Yep.
get them with a violation. fee.
Yeah.
yep, that makes sense. All right, so we'll take that sentence out, and it'll have to be from a professional engineer anyway. So to Sarah's point earlier, they're going to be
Paying
they're
us.
paying somebody
Right.
to sign off on it anyway. All right, that takes through all of our questions unless I missed anything. Okay, so then I think the last question is just what we need to do now. So you've already answered most of that, which is Sarah and I will go back, tweak these as needed based on the feedback you guys have given us. Based on the MS4 permit, the bylaw and associated regulations need to be finalized by June 30th of this year. Halifax has already made great progress with the bylaw being done. These are almost done. It'd be great to get it all wrapped up. So the question for you all then is what needs to be done for your processes to get these implemented and, out there as official? I would think you all would vote on them. Based on the current language in here, there would need to be a public hearing if it's modifications to the regulations. Sarah and I were talking about this earlier. It's a chicken or an egg kind of question, but it seems like going from no regulations at all to regulations is kind of a modification, so you probably need a hearing, but that's a place where I think it's kind of at your discretion how you handle these kinds of things when there's new regs that come on the books.
So we're hearing just like at our.
Yeah, maybe make a
conservation
public
meeting,
notice.
just-
I thought we already had MS4 regulations,
You have MS4 bylaw.
bylaws.
Yep.
And yeah.
And so the bylaws on the books went through town meeting,
Okay.
that's on the books and is implemented. The regulations will go with that. So the regulations don't need to go to town meeting, but we don't want to do anything that's kind of against your Concom processes. So given that these will be new regulations under the Concom, you might need to have a public hearing under the Concom jurisdiction to kind of go through the process that these are on the books.
Yeah, it certainly wouldn't hurt.
Yeah,
It's
but-
better to do it than to not,
I
right?
think so, unless you all feel like, well, these are new regulations, so we don't need to go to a public hearing.
So.
No, we like to have the public know about what it,
That's my sense is, that's my sense.
we're not hiding anything.
Yep,
So it's just to open it up to the public if they have questions.
I think that
We
would,
could
Yeah, but-
advertise it, and say this
Yeah,
is,
we can advertise it.
sure.
Then we'll have a
So-
discussion about it.
Yeah, our June meetings are June 8th and 22nd, I think. It's the
Does that
the
show like a
second and-
calendar?
the Second and fourth Tuesdays.
Okay. Check those dates.
So I would just need, I'm sure we can just do a very simple advertisement,
Mhm.
and anyone that's interested can certainly,
You were right about those dates, June 8th and
wow, I'm
22nd.
good. They can certainly get a copy from us of the new regulations once they're finalized. We could also somehow get it out on the website.
So I think, so if you wanted to go with your protocol for 14 days public notice, we are exactly 14 days from June 8th. So maybe we should do.
but don't want to make sure that these all get finalized first.
Yeah,
Right,
Yeah,
so
I
that's
would
why I
rather
think
do
we
the
should do
June
June
22nd.
22nd.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
so
We need to-
would you all want the hearing to be, I guess the hearing would be a regular Concom meeting, it sounds like.
Sure.
Would you all want to discuss anything on the 8th or kind of informally, or I don't know if it's a formal vote at that point, pending the hearing, or just do it all in 20 and kind of.
Well, we should probably discuss, once this is finalized, we should probably just review it again.
Okay, yep.
And then,
So we'll make sure we get you a final draft by your June 8th meeting so you can discuss it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then June 22nd. And then on that day, you'll have to make sure something's in a newspaper.
sure.
And
Well,
then,
prior
And
to,
then we'll vote on it that next time with,
right, the next meeting, we have people have their input and
yeah.
And then we
explain
have-
why we're adopting it.
You have a question?
I do. Different towns in their stormwater management regulations include larvicides and different pesticides because they're not considered a biosolid. And because we have so many wetlands and lakes, do you want to include larviciding in different things? Because depending on which applicator is doing it or which product they're using, it is extremely harmful to the aquatic life and different species and other things. Like, for example, organized mosquito control treats every single catch basin in town, but they're aware of it, but different people that have French drains and other things on their properties and the private applicators, it's cheaper for the private applicator to dump malathion there, and malathion isn't necessarily the best choice. There's your bees, your dragonflies, your butterflies. It grows into your lady slippers, it kills those all.
I thought that was illegal, malathion. You still can get it?
You can still get it. It's,
So I think in order to do that, I think we would probably have to go back to the bylaw and open it up because those types of applications are not covered under the stormwater bylaw as passed. My sense, and I can double check how it's written, but my sense is that type of change starts to open us up into a little more broader than just regulations that go with the bylaw.
Bylaw that was just passed.
Yeah.
I had asked questions about it at it, but I don't think that Charlie or the selectmen understood that there were other applicators other than state organized mosquito control.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of that's outside of the stormwater. completely.
Yeah, I think so the MS4 permit has specific pieces that need to be in your stormwater bylaw.
Right.
Like we did with the biosolids, there's no reason you can't put additional details that relate to stormwater, and pesticides and herbicide could relate to it, certainly.
Right.
But where do you end?
Right, that's another, yeah. So I think if it's,
You don't like this, somebody else doesn't like that, before you know it, you can't walk down the street
Right, no, I-
without a mask on. Huh.
so I think that type of question though, certainly we can come back to next year, and I already know there likely will be some minor tweaks to the bylaw we might have to consider next year that are just kind of wordsmithing.
And then we could add certain things.
So we can have another conversation about it next year. I think for this year, given that it's not in the bylaw as written, I don't think we can put it in the regulation just because they need to be consistent with each other.
no, and MDR and others are working on it statewide
Yep.
too, and there's gonna be some federal regulations coming out, so.
yeah, I do actually have notes going for potential future bylaw updates based on our conversations with Charlie. So I'll add that to at least the list so it comes back up during, 2022 town
Yeah,
meeting.
I don't wanna stop anyone from doing anything, but I'd like to see it done correctly.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so it
Alright.
sounds like just to make sure we're on the same page, Sarah and I will make these tweaks. We'll get it to you before your June 8th meeting. We'll try to do it a week in advance again if that works. And then if there's other questions, we can follow up.
Sure.
But ideally, we have that hearing at your June 22nd meeting and get everything wrapped up. In the meantime, it'd be great if you all just review the draft again, especially
Yeah.
that section E, to see if there's anything you do or don't like. And in terms of the 8th, I don't know, and maybe you can let us know if you need or want us here, we can have another conversation like this. If you prefer to just talk amongst yourself or everything looks great, we don't need to be here. Or we can kind of see how it goes. Once you can look at the regulations, you can give us a shout and say, hey, we need you.
Yeah, I mean,
here,
if we
or-
get it a couple of days ahead of time, we can,
Say we have a question about this.
Shoot
Yeah,
something out
shoot us an email.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't have any plans on Tuesday night, so.
Okay, great.
All right, anything else?
I don't think so. Anybody, any questions?
No, it was good.
Anybody else?
That's good, no?
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
thank you for coming.
Thank you for your hard work.
Yeah.
The update is Zoom, so it, basically you can tell Charlie that you're here to do whatever they need to
do. We just have a few things to finish up, and I don't want you to miss.
Oh, what time is it?
It was
It's 20 of right now. I mean,
20th?
10 of.
10.
10 of. Yeah, and I think your appointment was about 7:45.
Oh,
so
it
you
was?
can- Yeah, so you can just check to see if they're ready for you if you want.
What, just go up there
Yeah.
instead of doing Zoom?
Oh, well, just jump on Zoom then if you.
Well, wait.
Look at you
I
high tech over
basically
there.
told Charlie and whatever we would be here if they
Yeah.
had any questions, but I'm
That's
not.
all right.
But they're doing Zoom upstairs anyways, right?
No, they're Zooming, so Charlie and Troy are right across the hall.
So should
thank you very much.
I
Could you just walk across the hall?
Or no?
Why don't you jump on the phone, if you've got the app on your phone, jump on it and see if they're ready for you.
Okay. I'll run out and I'll come back.
Yeah,
I'll come back. If they do it and I'm done, then I'll come right back.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay.
I owe these plans back to Charlie. Where's
I
the
didn't realize
rest
the
of
time.
Just
Jeez.
leave
I was
them
gonna
on
check
the and we'll get them to them,
Okay.
yeah. Thanks, Colleen.
Yeah,
And
no,
if they have any questions, they're here.
yeah, absolutely. I'll be right back if they need you.
Anyone make a motion to pay bills?
I put a motion, we pay bills?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And let's see, what else do we have?
Approve the minutes?
That was good.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Aye.
Thank you.
Approval of meetings of May 11th.
I think, well, I wasn't here, so can't do it.
Yeah, Chris is,
Was I here? I was here. Oh, do we need 3 people now? Or?
Yeah, you do.
Okay, so
I-
can we
I
do
think
it
you
next
do.
week? For approval of minutes, do we need 3 people?
I think we actually only need the majority of the 3,
Oh, okay.
which would be
Me
you
too.
two, and you two can sign it. I think that's actually.
yeah, we changed it like recently, didn't we?
Yeah, just a minute. Yeah, hit it.
Okay, and today is, what's today's date?
The
25th.
5th.
So Eddie, you motion and Kathy, your second.
I second, yeah. There you go. And a couple more talent banks.
Yeah, it
Sure,
should
tell them
be
to
in
come
the
in.
mail folder.
You can sit through a couple meetings, see if they want to keep
You have
going.
the bills to sign too?
Sounds like, here's one.
We also, for next, I just want to, this isn't on the agenda, but there is a citizen in town, a resident in town, who's in college and he's doing a civic project to graduate, and he just wants to come and talk with you guys at the next meeting.
How much money's he got?
And we also received an email regarding a firm that supports ongoing research and development for harmful algae bloom removal technology. He said he was going to get us some more information for our next meeting. It's basically a no cost to us for them to just basically for any town that needs support with the, whatever they do. I'm really not.
Who is it?
I really didn't have time
Yeah, no.
to review, but I'll send you guys the information once it comes through.
And this is on Wood Street or on Home Street?
Yeah, there's a couple of site
285.
plans.
I think for the people that want to come in, they should just come in
This
For
one?
that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think this one,
and just see if they show up, you know? Come up every Tuesday and spend a year or two here.
yeah, I think we're pretty much full. I think, between the 5 members and our new associate, I'm not sure if we need any more. I think we only have 1 associate anyway, right?
Really?
It's 2.
Yeah, 2 or 3 in the chance, but
Yeah, we've had at least 2 in the past.
It's listed as 2 on the town
okay.
website.
Well, I don't know it all, so.
No, I'm not, I had to research it when you emailed me, Terry, that's the only reason I know.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's this person's who's,
So do you want me to reach out to them to see if they want to come in?
Sure.
yeah,
Okay. 285 Home Street, this is the old,
There's a house there, isn't there?
no, it's a commercial building over by the tracks, by the
Oh, Home
police
Street.
station.
Okay, yeah.
Liddell Brothers bought the property. It
Is
used
that
to
the
be a
furniture
wood
store?
shop. Used to be that wood shop in our building.
Yeah,
So
there's been a lot of
basically,
things.
This is before the planning board anyway, there's no wetlands on here.
Yeah,
They're just basically adding a building and some parking,
nice.
but there's really not a whole lot of jurisdiction for us, so.
You get an MS4
outside
permit?
the wetlands and. Oh,
I
yeah,
don't think it's,
does it have an acre or more?
Well, the
yeah,
thing is,
only
it's-
if it's disturbing an acre or more.
Yeah.
I don't think.
We didn't have got that yet, so I'm just
I don't
kidding.
think this is disturbing
Ah.
more than an acre.
I don't either.
We certainly.
It's already
see
there.
There's, yeah,
Yeah,
the
'cause
this
they're
building
adding-
is already here. Apparently there was an old foundation in this, where they're gonna put the new building for
Yeah.
the addition.
It's right on the tracks,
Yeah, the tracks are right here.
right,
Oh, is that where they found the body a couple years ago?
Yes,
Yeah.
the guy who died inside the building,
yeah.
yeah.
How's he doing?
It's doing much better now.
Better place than we are.
I can certainly
Hopefully.
look to see if there is a stormwater management report that was also.
No, no.
No, because they're not
I
disturbing.
don't think
Yeah.
they disturb more
I was
than.
just busting your chops.
Oh, okay.
Chop busting, okay?
I don't think they disturbed
Yeah.
more than an acre,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
that's that. And then we got a big size plan for
What is it?
the solar field.
So we're
Oh,
doing
Nashville?
That one is Franklin Street.
Oh, Franklin Street again?
Yeah, so they're probably gonna be looking for a certificate of compliance, where you guys wanted to wait and make sure the trees actually, survived.
Yeah, right, because if the, remember they went through that big spiel about the
It will survive, yeah, if you cut it.
Yeah, if they cut it.
pruning, but they call it something else.
So where are the trees?
Polling?
Trees are-
Yeah,
Okay, here they are, these are the trees that the,
Well, these are the
owners
evergreens that they
wanted.
put in
Yeah.
here.
Right.
And then they wanted to fence after the fact, but they stayed
Yeah,
with the trees.
stayed with the trees.
and all those trees that they lopped off,
Yeah, it's a
you
ton
know,
of
70
them.
feet down from the top and
Yeah.
told us they were gonna grow
We told them that
again.
they could not cut down the now dead tree.
Yeah.
Right near the
equipment.
substation.
I think if the tree died out there, we should make a plant one next to it, because they told us they weren't gonna die.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah. They thought, they were talking about trying to drink the Kool-Aid, holy smokes. That guy was smoking crack.
So that's that. And then, I think that's pretty much it. Anything else in the folder? Butters list. And,
So back to that thing. Next meeting, can we bring up a thing about, when we have a full board here, about making them plant trees if they died? Because they told us they were gonna.
if you'd like me to put it on the agenda, I
Yeah.
can certainly put it on as
I
discussion.
think we should.
Okay.
Yeah, well, not even just that tree, but all the trees.
There was hundreds of
All
trees.
the ones that they pulled.
Right.
They said they were all going to,
Right, they said they're gonna grow abundantly.
and they'll be fine.
They can, you
Yeah,
know,
pine trees, yeah.
how many trees snapped off my yard? They don't grow after they break. I think we should do a site visit.
Yeah, the ground should be pretty dry out there right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
take a video and we can play it.
You could do that.
Can we make a movie?
Replace
Yeah.
5,000 trees.
And June 8th as well, we received a request for certificate of compliance for that River Street solar. I don't know if you guys even ever went out for a site visit on that one.
You think we didn't have to?
I don't think, yeah, because it's in the middle of a field.
Right.
So there were never trees or any issues like that.
Right, everything is outside.
But they
that.
are looking for a certificate of compliance, which is on next
Cool.
meeting.
Now, River Street, there's one on, when you're going down there, they're on the left. What's going on the right? It's the same thing?
Aren't they
Did
put
they-
more solar out there?
Didn't they have two fields?
Two fields, yeah.
One
I think it was
on
at the
the side.
left, but
Yeah,
then I saw a for
Yeah.
sale sign on one of them.
yeah, they're next to each other or something.
I don't know of any
Yeah.
other projects.
You should
That's
know
pretty
this.
much it.
Okay,
I put a motion that we adjourn?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.